All right. Hey there, folks. Welcome back. It's great to be doing this again. Well, the world continues to be a bit topsy-turvy, and with book tour and convention still on a staggered return, I figured I'd bring book tour to you. So welcome to Russ's Rockin' Rollercoaster Season 6, intriguing interviews with creative minds. Well, there's no doubt that the last few years have necessitated us being indoors a bit more than we're used to. But that doesn't mean we can't boldly go where no one has gone before, including not one, not two, not three, but 4 new iterations of one of the longest running sci-fi franchises in TV history, with even more still to come. That's why tonight we'll be talking about Star Trek's newest generation, including Picard, Discovery, Lower Decks, and Prodigy. First up on our panel is my pal, Jim Johnson. Jim is a science fiction and fantasy author, and is the project manager for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game from Modiphius Entertainment. He's also written stage plays and other pieces of fiction, including several stories published in the Star Trek universe. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, Russ. Thanks for having me on. Happy New Year.
All right, Happy New Year to you as well. All right, also on our panel is my pal, Scott Pearson. Scott is a full-time freelance writer and editor, has published across a number of genres, including 3 Star Trek stories and 2 Trek novellas. He is also the copy editor of the Simon Schuster Star Trek novels, well, say that 3 times fast, canon editor of the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game, and with his daughter Ella, co-host the Generations Geek podcast. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, happy to be here.
All right, good to see you. All right, speaking of which, rounding out our panel is Ella Pearson. Ella is a lifelong Star Trek fan, has participated on panels and gives interviews at Star Trek conventions, and graduated with a degree in studies, college degree in studies in cinema and media culture. And of course, she co-hosts the Generations Geek podcast with her dad, and is co-host of the Discovered Star Trek Recap podcast. All right, welcome, Ella.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Okay, just a heads up for the folks at home. Feel free to send me notes or questions you have for me or the panel in the chat box during the show, and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, so we're going to jump in here. So I've asked this question before, but I think it's worth asking again. Star Trek has been a central element of science fiction and fantasy for more than 50 years. And in the last few years in particular, it's seen an incredible resurgence. So before we get into the details of the various shows, what is it underneath it all for you that makes Star Trek such an appealing and enduring franchise? Jim?
More than anything else, I think it's the optimism and the hope that's in every single series and every single character. I think being able to watch a science fiction show that isn't grimdark and isn't cynical is just refreshing. It was refreshing 50 odd years ago when it first came out, and it's refreshing now, right? Especially these last few years have been so challenging for so many people. It's nice to have something positive to watch.
For sure. Ella?
I would agree with that. I think the drive to sort of be the best that we can be has kept it going for all these decades.
All right, Scott?
Yeah, and I would add to that just the characters that you see always striving to be their best selves, to do what's right, to help others.
All right, fair enough. All right, I'm not going to spend too much time on this as I've addressed Picard in a previous show, but fans all have their favorite versions of Star Trek. They have their favorite storylines and they have their favorite characters. With Picard, for example, we were reintroduced to many characters from Next Gen and Voyager. What's your take on bringing back some of those characters for a where are they now and doing a new spin, as opposed to creating all new characters in a totally new iteration of Star Trek? Ella.
I mean, I love it. My view on all the new series is maybe going to be a little bit different than the others, because I was never really kicking enough to experience when Star Trek was airing, those first TV shows. But I think that, I don't know, I think it's fun. I like that they have a balance between the shows also of you get to see sort of your old friends, but then also you get to meet all the new characters and expand the universe a little bit.
Scott?
Yeah, I think it was important, particularly with Picard, to not have it just be TNG Part 2. that they've done a good job of making it its own show, but you have to have some of those touchstones to the original as well, and so I think they've found a balance.
So Jim, there's a follow-up. Let me ask you. So what was interesting for me, or most interesting or compelling for me in watching Picard, is that when we saw Next Gen the first time around, Picard is in the prime of his career, he's in the prime of his life, and he's the captain of a starship. This is a guy, and not only a captain, but arguably the captain of his day. This guy's got gravitas, he's got power, he's got influence. When we meet him now, he's an old man. He's frail because he's old. That's what happens. He's not in Starfleet. He can't just order people around. He sort of has to scuffle. And we've never seen Picard, and especially Picard, a guy who was so exalted, and now he's outside the clubhouse now. What was that? Talk to me about that a little bit.
What, just seeing the progression of the character? I thought it was really interesting. I was a little skeptical about Picard because I didn't, like Scott was saying, I didn't want to just see a TNG 2.0 because there's no way they could go back 30 odd years and do that kind of show again. So I was really hoping to see a progression of the character and to see like what, how do those years impact him? And I think we got that. And I was happy to see that. And, I was impressed that they were willing to kind of deconstruct him a little bit. Because I think sometimes you have a tendency to put media characters on a pedestal because they're so perfect or they're so amazing or whatever. And, TNG was pretty much the pinnacle of, your idealized Starfleet crew because they never got into conflict with each other. And so it was a nice change of pace to see them being honest with the character, to see him looking frail and looking challenged and having to find other ways to go on his adventures.
He had to really scuffle his way through in a way we've never seen before.
I love that we see the other characters like Raffi and Laris not having the same kind of hero worship to their relationship with him, that they can treat him as a person who might take himself too seriously occasionally. And it's a good source of humor, but it also does show that progression, and you get to see him a little bit as a fish out of water.
Right, for sure. Okay, so I want to spend a little time digging into Discovery, which is arguably the most divisive of the new shows. In the newest season, the crew is now firmly 900 years in the future, giving the show a real chance for a true reset and forging its own path, not really tied to existing timelines. So for my money, and this is just my opinion, the last few episodes of the current season were maybe my favorite so far, as they were more about ideas and less about kind of blasting their way out of trouble. As our friend Keith DeCandido recently wrote, I can watch them science the shit out of things all day long. So with that, there's still a bit of a character musical chairs going on. Do you think at this point, and granted the season's only about halfway done, but at this point, do you think that Discovery has confidently found its own voice, or is it still finding its own way? Scott, let's keep going with you.
I think they're still looking around a little bit. I'm enjoying the current season a little bit more than the previous season, just because they are out on their own now and not tucked into that time period that we know so well. But my focus on Discovery has always been the characters more than the other trappings around it. Burnham and Tilly, Saru. I just really like those characters.
Jim?
I think it's still looking for its really firm footing. I think it's getting there, but on the one hand, I'm kind of frustrated that they keep doing kind of musical chairs with some of the characters, but then I also wonder if that's intentional, right? We don't know how it's going to end, right? They still got 5 or 6 episodes in the season, so we're not quite sure how it's all going to wrap up. So for the moment, I guess no spoilers, but Tilly is not as present as she has been, and we have a couple of familiar faces coming back based on the trailers that we've seen. So I'm just kind of curious as to where it's going. But like Scott said, it's the characters that are keeping me coming back, and that's been true for Star Trek from the beginning, right? You're watching it for the characters and for the big ideas. And I agree with you, Russ, that this year they really started to lean into the big ideas kind of thing. I wish they weren't chasing another galaxy ending event. Like, why is there a big thing every single season that they have to go solve? Why can't they do some smaller stories, right? But that's just a minor complaint, really. How many times can you keep raising the stakes? So yeah, I think it's been confirmed for another season, and hopefully they keep it in the same timeline, because I think that really helped them from season 3 to season 4. Instead of jumping timelines again, they're in the same place. They got the same supporting cast. They can start building up that supporting cast, like Vance and the president and some of the other main characters. So I'm eager to see where it goes next.
Ellis, what about you?
I think that by the end of this season, or the end of next season, that we'll really see them have their own voice for sure. I think that between Burnham helping like build the Federation back up, and Saru being able to go home, and hopefully we'll see Tilly. I have been surprised. I do think it's a little odd, her absence, but just them all finding their own paths.
So I want to ask you. You said something. I was speaking to someone today about this, and let me ask you. You mentioned something important about rebuilding the Federation. Now, on the one hand, you could say, hey, look, we had this cataclysmic event. We really got fractured, and we need to sort of come back together. But here's a question. With Burnham kind of, and we'll get to her in a minute, sort of helping lead the charge to sort of reunite the Federation. But the question is, should they really be trying to reunite the Federation set against 22nd century principles as opposed to where they are now? Do they really want to recreate a model that ultimately didn't work, or should they try to sort of do something else? What do you think?
I think that might be the big question. We talk a lot on my on Discoverage, my recap podcast, about how it seems like they're really trying to teach us to question authority, and they have, throughout many other Star Trek episodes have been about questioning authority. And so, it's interesting, right? Because Burnham has this past of like, she made this mistake where she didn't listen to the Federation, and it took kind of an extreme turn of events. But so we'll see. Maybe she'll question, maybe she's the exact right person, because she'll be right there to question President Rillick again when she needs to. Maybe she'll lean into it and there'll be another turn of events. I don't know. I think it is the big question.
All right, so let's talk about Burnham. So opinions certainly vary here, but Discovery probably lives or dies on the lead character more so than any other Star Trek show. In this case, Michael Burnham. Some fans absolutely love her, saying she is the embodiment of all things that they loved most about Star Trek, not the least of which is her ferocious dedication to the core principles of the Federation. Other fans, however, feel that she is essentially a superhero with, even for a sci-fi series, an unrealistic combination of skills and intellect. Essentially, she's Kirk, Picard, Spock, and Worf all rolled into one. So what's your take? And Ella, we'll just keep going with you since you're here.
I guess I just think that she's kind of fantastic. She's strong, and I think that some of her, what maybe people would call her a superhero for, can be explained by, how she was raised. And I think it makes for a really interesting and dynamic character, because she makes, different decisions depending on the situation that she's in all the time.
Jim?
Yeah, to a certain extent, every Star Trek character is a superhero in some ways, right? They are the main characters, and of course they're going to be doing really cool stuff. I don't know. I think Burnham gets probably an unfair rap by a subset of the fandom. I think she's pretty amazing. I think the actress, phenomenal. Every time we see her, just amazing stuff that she's doing. Sonequa Martin Green is just, it's just a pleasure to watch, right? Even if the writers are putting weird words in her mouth and occasionally making her do weird things, she's still doing amazing stuff with it. So, am I on the fanboy train for Burnham? Not really, but I appreciate her as a character, and I've enjoyed seeing her growth. Right? If you see her from the very beginning at the beginning of Discovery season 1, right, and to where she is now, that's a pretty impressive arc, and I'm curious to see where they continue to go with that.
Scott?
Yeah, I think sometimes maybe they've had her able to solve everything a little bit too easily on her own, but that's a minor point. Like Jim said, that tends to be the case with a lot of the characters. And yeah, I think Sonequa, I think she just has the most expressive face in the history of Star Trek. Just watching her reaction shots to various things, she seems to express so much of what's going on inside Burnham. And I've really been a fan of her character arc in that we see her hit the bottom. You know, she makes a very difficult choice that, you know, an ill-advised choice that ruins her career. And you get to see her come back, like you said, just totally through her dedication to Starfleet and Federation ideals. And that has been fun to watch across all the seasons.
I mean, I would submit that no matter where you fall on the Burnham scale, that she gives A++ effort every single time out. I mean, she leaves nothing back. She holds nothing back. It's all there. So you got to give, I think you got to give her credit for at minimum for the effort, regardless of you know, where you land on the character itself. All right. So as a personal favorite, I just want to give a shout out to David Ayala, who is not only great as Book, but as I posted recently, in my opinion, he would make an excellent James Bond. Where do you rate him on the Book meter? Scott?
Well, he's a phenomenal actor, and I love the idea of him as James Bond, definitely. I've enjoyed his character. You know, this season has been a little bit difficult because we're watching a lot of characters being really put through an emotional ringer, and he really does, you know, you can see his deep pain at what has happened to his people. But yeah, he's really phenomenal in the role.
All right. Anyone else got thoughts on Book?
I mean, I'm interested to see where it goes next, right? I mean, they made some choices in the last couple episodes that could have a lot of repercussions, and I'm as a writer, like, I'm glad that they made those choices and they didn't make it easy for anybody. And I'm just curious to see what happens, and I'm curious to see what kind of, you know, whether they make more bold choices or not for the characters. So we'll see. But you know, I like Book and I like the actor, so I just want to see more of them.
Ella?
I think he's a fantastic actor, and I was gonna say I'm not happy that his planet was destroyed, but I was happy to see him get kind of like some more meat to like really act with.
Yeah.
That's been amazing, and yeah, he would make a fantastic Bond.
All right, so whatever happens, if he ends up as Bond, you can say you heard it here first. All right, I'm leading the charge. All right, so let's shift gears a bit and let's talk about some animated series, starting with Lower Decks. Now, Lower Decks is definitely not our parents' or our grandparents' Star Trek. Essentially, it's a Rick and Morty light version of Star Trek. It's wild, it's outrageous, sometimes hilarious, and yet still totally Trek. So talk to me about Lower Decks. What do you think, Scott?
I think it's probably my favorite of the series right now. I've really been enjoying it. I think that you get to see a variety of characters that are all struggling to find their place in Starfleet, and that in the end they still try to do the right thing, even if they're making bizarre choices along the way, you know, sometimes just for the comedic effect. But you know, that's what really keeps it in Star Trek is, you know, not all the delightful Easter eggs and callbacks, but the characters just, you know, being in their heart good people striving to do what's right. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to being back.
Jim?
I'll admit that Lower Decks took a while to grow on me. I think the first few episodes of the first season, because I had never seen Rick and Morty, so I had no idea what to expect really. And it was like the first couple episodes, I was like, what is this? I'm not sure what this is. Like, I like the characters, but like the situations they were going into and like just the extreme stuff that was happening. Like, I mean, it was almost like South Park Star Trek, right? And I love South Park, but I don't expect to see South Park in my Star Trek, right? It was just a little bit of a brain shift to see it happen. But season 2, I think, was just a light year, evolution of the show, and I really enjoyed season 2 more than season 1. Although I think like the tail end of season 1, they really picked it up, and I think, of course, once you add Riker to the mix, right? I mean, he makes everything better.
Yeah. He was so good. Oh my god,
so good. Yeah. So it's really grown on me.
Every once in a while, they take it a little bit too far for me, where it's like I would have thought that was hilarious if it was in Rick and Morty, but I don't want it in Star Trek. But that only happens once in a while, and usually they stay within my comfort zone of Star Trek based humor.
See, I would actually argue, so for me, it's the opposite. I feel that they're too constrained because they almost have to have like Star Trek guardrails. And I think like they want to be full blown Rick and Morty, and they're getting closer, but I don't know that they're allowed to. And I want them to just go completely off the rails, but that's me. Ella, what do you think?
I love it. I think I have almost no complaints. It's so funny. The idea is just so ingenious and just hysterical. I think it's great. I don't know if I feel super strongly either way, whether they're holding back or whether they need to let go, but I do think that the second season, they really hit their stride, and I'm excited for next season too.
So, and I'd like to add that they have done a couple episodes that got me so like emotionally that I never would have expected. They're just being zany and crazy and stupid, but then they will turn and do something with a character that is really serious or sad, and it really gets me. And I was really surprised a couple times at how because I wouldn't have expected myself to be as attached to these silly cartoons, but they can turn it around and really make you feel something too.
So speaking of that, so given that it's animated, the voice acting has to really work. I think they're great. What do you think an animated series or an animated version of Star Trek brings to the table that maybe a live action series just can't pull off for logistical reasons? Ella?
Well, you have basically an unlimited effects budget, and I think that's one place where I think they could go further is some of the like alien environments and extraterrestrial species that you see on Rick and Morty that are just so out there. I would like to see a little bit more of that on Lower Decks, but they have certainly done some things that you wouldn't see in a live action show. Although, of course, now CGI is getting so amazing that you almost don't have that barrier between animated and live action that you used to have.
Yeah, I agree with Scott. I think I experienced this a little bit, working on the role-playing game, is that in a different medium, there's really no budget, and the imagination that an artist can bring to it is the canvas is so wide open. You can do literally anything you want in an animated show and it works, right? Whereas like on a live action show, the CGI can only go to a certain point before it looks cartoonish, and then it doesn't look right. Right. But if you're already doing an animated show in a cartoon, then you can go crazy with it because it'll still fit. And, like the most recent, I know we'll get to Prodigy in a second, but like the crystalline creatures in Prodigy.
Let's not get into that yet.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. But yeah, so I think really just the fact that you can do literally anything you want with animation, even beyond live action, is really cool.
Ella?
Yeah, I would love to see some weirder aliens from them, or just some like ridiculous, almost just like a ridiculous action sequence. that you just couldn't pull off live action, that would be awesome. And
So
yeah, I think it's a huge advantage.
That's a little bit of what I'm getting towards, where I feel like they're a little constrained right now. I mean, it may just be, look, every season they seem to be the storytelling is getting a little bit more sophisticated. The adventures are getting more, are getting more out there. And it may just be like, hey, we're just going to keep building and building and building. But because it's animated, and if you look at Rick and Morty, if you've ever seen it, I mean, that show is just absolutely batshit crazy. That's their standing level is like 11, and then they just go crazy from there. I want to see Lower Decks kind of like they're like at a standing like 6.5. I want them to get up to like a 9. Like I really want them to go bonkers and just blow my brains out with just their lunacy, but also because of what they can do much more easily with animation. They could do interdimensional madness in a way that it would just be more difficult in a live action show because the expense and whatnot. Just push it to the limit. I want to see how far they can go. Because if we're going to go, at least for my money, if you're going to do animated, why not just push the limits? You can, so why not? You can play it safer in other shows. This clearly isn't the place that they're going. This is not safe. So I want to see more of what they do. All right. So quick interlude for the folks who came in a little late. If you have any questions or comments from me or the panel, send them in the chat box and we'll get to a few at the end. All right. Well, last but certainly not least, let's dive into Prodigy. Now, I have to say, and Jim, you were alluding to it, the animation is spectacular. I mean, the animation is very solid on Lower Decks, but on Prodigy, this is an entirely different level of animation, just absolutely mind-blowing. But animation isn't enough. We now have this ragtag team forming a found family. We're only 7 episodes in so far. What do you think, Ella?
I would have to say, well, and I hate to say it, but they've been having a hard time winning me over. It hasn't been, I haven't loved it quite as much right off the bat as I have the other new shows, but the past couple of episodes really, I think, have been
much better.
Yeah, phenomenal. And so now I'm excited to see what happens tomorrow and next week. So I hope they keep going with that.
Scott?
It's been a little uneven for me. My main problem has been, and I'm terrible with character names in new shows, so I don't remember, but like kind of the male lead that wants to be the captain of the show. Yeah. They made the choice that they've made him a somewhat unlikable character in that he's got some instincts that certainly do not live up to Starfleet ideals, because that's not the world he's in. And so watching him being kind of a jerk sometimes has put a little distance between me and the show. But I also, recognize that, that's how that's the arc that they're giving to this character. And you see him get better and better. You see him grow and become more of a team player. So it is growing on me. But yeah, I do love the animation style, and I enjoy the other characters. And so it's pulling me in.
Jim?
Yeah, similarly, I love the totality of the show, like the effects, the music, the sound, all of that is just really, really working for me, because it looks it is visually stunning on the screen, right? We're so lucky to be in this day and age of television that is putting feature length stuff or feature quality stuff on the screen, right? I think the writing is frustrating me a little bit. Like Scott, like I really want to like Dow, but like he's not giving me any reason to like him, right? He's just, really abrasive and really wet behind the ears and is completely full of himself. And it's like, really listen to your people, right? Like try to, it's not all about you, but again, as writers, right, we understand that the arc that they're trying to put the character on, which is fine, but like I kind of don't want to be seeing the arc so clearly. Like I know that's the arc that he's on, but like we know that's the arc that he's on, and I would like to be a little bit more surprised with him. So I'm curious to see where it goes next. Okay. And
I want to bring this up. I'm going to jump ahead of my own question. So I agree. I think that he's too immature, and even for this ragtag situation, like they would never collectively agree that what he gets to be captain because he called dibs. I mean, sorry, but like if you're being hunted down by like a tyrannical, intergalactic maniac, I'm sorry, dibs ain't really going to cut it. Someone else is just going to step in and push him aside. But nevertheless, what did you think? And I thought it was great myself. His Kobayashi Maru episode. I mean, he took that test over and over and over. I mean, this is a kid who was like, he went for it, right? I mean, he could have just been a baby and he could have given up, right? That's like what a lot of teens will do. Oh, I can't do this. Forget it. It's stupid. He didn't do that. How many times did he go for it? 100 times. He went over and over and over. And so speaking of which, so talk to me. What did you think about bringing back Spock, Uhura, Crusher, Odo, and Scotty? What did you think? Yay or nay?
I thought it was good. Like it was nice to see those characters on the screen again. The challenge I had with it, though, I don't know if it's my setup or whatever, but like the audio between the different dialogue bit, like it was clear to me that they were pulling it out of different episodes, right? And it felt to me like they didn't balance it right, or they didn't balance the audio quite right. So it sounded like sound clips as opposed to these characters talking naturally to dial in the moment. I love seeing the characters on screen. Great, really happy for that. But I think that technical thing just kind of pulled me out of the experience a little bit.
Ella?
I really liked it, even as just kind of like almost a stunt episode for all of the like fans to watch and love. I thought it was so sweet, and I also thought that it was a really fun way of introducing them. Like it was so funny to watch them be like, oh, we got the whole catalog of officers in here. We can pick anybody.
Good.
Yeah, I thought it was super fun. I didn't have a huge problem with my audio as far as like, oh, clearly it sounds like super clearly like a soundbite. But I was like, I know Leonard Nimoy's voice when I hear it. Like I'm like.
Yeah, the sound levels, they were not consistent. You could hear it was a little off. But so along these lines, so I happen to love, this is just me, I happen to love that Janeway is the computer's holographic tutor. What do you think having such an established character with real gravitas brings to this crew and to the show, even though her role through sheer necessity has to be somewhat confined? Scott?
I think it was a really fun and interesting idea to do that. I mean, it's a way to tie back into the larger franchise. And so it's something for the older fans, while the new fans will enjoy the character just, for what she is. And I think they've done a great job of, it's a tricky thing to write a holographic character that's just, she's a simulation of Janeway. So she should seem like Janeway, but she can't seem, she's not going to be exactly Janeway. It's a subtle thing, but I think they've managed that pretty well.
Ella?
I really like it, and I think it's something that's really interesting about it is that for those of us who have watched and loved Voyager, I think it like flips this switch in your brain as the audience, where it's like, okay, she's that's the boss, and we love her and we trust her. And I think it helps sort of connect you with the kids, because you're like, oh yeah, she knows what she's talking about. I'll just listen to Janeway. I don't know if everyone else has kind of experienced that, but
Jim?
Yeah, I like Janeway as the mentor character. I think it's an interesting take on it. Really no problem. I don't think I have any major comments on, other than it's a nice, obviously you want to have a touchstone to the rest of the franchise, because the protostar itself, we don't really know the story behind it yet. And we don't really know, we're probably about to find out some stories about why the protostar ended up where it was, but I think to tell this kind of show with a group of ragtag kids who stumble upon a Federation starship, right? That's not enough. Like, even though all the ships are characters in their shows, it's not enough for the protostar to just be there by itself. You needed a touchstone, and Picard's already busy doing his own show, right? And I think the next logical choice, if you can't get Cisco, certainly go with Janeway. And I think Janeway's the right kind of figure for this crew to make it work.
So one thought, that my initial thought when I was watching it, the series, was that visually for sure, but even some of the storytelling, it actually felt more like it felt much more like a Star Wars universe show that just happened to have some Star Trek logos slapped onto it. I don't feel that quite as much 7 episodes in, but it still has a very Star Warsy, maybe like a Clone Wars kind of like animated vibe to it. And it doesn't, at least to me, yet it doesn't feel entirely like a Star Trek show just yet. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe we just got to give it time to really kind of grow. What? Yay, nay? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think especially the pilot. I think the first 30 minutes, right, really felt like Star Wars or like Clone Wars or Rebels, like a mix of those two. And especially with the main I don't want to say he's a villain yet because we're not entirely sure, but like the diviner and his robot sidekick and Gwyn, right? I was getting very clear Sith vibes off of those. And
Right.
And even some of the musical cues were like, okay, this is right out of Star Wars. This is right out of Star Wars. And my 6-year-old son was watching it with me, and we sat through the first half hour, and he was getting restless in the first half hour because he looked at me and he said, "Dad, this is Star Trek, but where's the ship? There's no ship." And I was like, "Oh shoot, you're right. There's no Star Trek ship, right? There's no obvious connection to Star Trek. It's just a bunch of rebels on the planet." And then finally they find the protostar, and then he got a little bit more engaged because the protostar is a recognizable Star Trek vehicle, right, with the nacelles and the saucer and stuff. So I think they've moved away from that a little bit, in my opinion, in the last few episodes. But at least starting out, the first thing I thought of was this is Star Wars.
All right.
Dude, that 6-year-old is dialed in. He was like, I know this ship is supposed to be a character. Where is it?
Seriously, right?
All right. So one more question, just sort of as a wrap up about Prodigy. So what do you hope to see as Prodigy progresses, and what, if any, pitfalls do you hope that the show avoids? Ella?
I hope it stays a kids show. I want to watch them sort of learn and be mentored. For me, I would love if and this is maybe seasons ahead, I would love if one or more of them eventually joined the academy. I think that would be very nice. Maybe they're a little on the young side. But I don't know. I think I need a couple more episodes before I have any idea what direction they're actually going.
Scott?
Yeah, I would like to see that progression as well. You will see them learn more and more about how to be a team, and they learn about Federation and Starfleet ideals. And coming from the environment they do, those are really alien concepts to them to a certain extent. And as they start learning about the wider galaxy and the Federation, I would really, in the long run, like to see them, get to the Alpha Quadrant, get into the academy. But I would echo Ella's comment that I do want to see it stay a kids show. And once they get to the greater world, it would it would lose that, because then they'd be surrounded by adults. And so the show kind of has to stay for the most of its run. It just has to stay kind of lost out in these other regions, so we can just stick with the ragtag kids.
Well, and this is maybe kind of a big comparison to make, but Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's adult characters that amazing show that like are pivotal to the plot and help the kids, but it stays on, right? Especially Aang, who's the youngest. Like it really, and maybe Toph is younger. You don't have to get into that, but like it really stays with those kids, and you watch them learn all that stuff, how to be a team, all that stuff. So yeah, I would love for them to keep that theme going, I guess.
Jim, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think more than anything else, I want it to remain a kid's show. I think some of the recent episodes were a little too intense, even for my 6-year-old. And he hasn't watched them all yet. But I was watching a couple and was like, wow, he couldn't sit through this. This is too much. And like the whole betrayal by the Ferengi thing, that's a lot to put on a 6-year-old. But what I also really hope is I hope they find that balance point between giving the longtime fans something to look at and get that nostalgia kick, but also tell their story, right? Tell the kids' story. Like I like Chakotay, right? But I care less about what happened to Chakotay than I do what's going to happen to these kids, right? I want them to be focused on these characters and not continually referencing back to all the previous characters that we know and love. So that's my hope, anyways, that they stay focused on these kids and what their journey is.
All right, that was great. But now it's time for us to do a special segment where we spin the wheel. On the wheel are 7 possible categories, which I created especially for this panel. Wherever it lands is what you get, and the categories are Reporting for Duty, The Lunch Pail Kids, The Boimler Effect, Crew Stew, Michael Burnham's Day Off, Grievous versus Dreadnock, and Trektastic Voyage. All right, Jim, you're up first. You ready?
Sure.
All right, here we go.
What is happening?
I didn't know we were getting a game. This is cool.
All right, yeah, all right. The Lunch Pail Kids. All right, this is one of my. All right, one of my favorite characters on Discovery is, in my humble opinion, the underused engineer Commander Jet Reno, played by Tig Notaro. I love her lunch pail style attitude and how she plays foil to Stamets. How do you think that Reno would get along with fellow engineer Scotty? Do they bond? Do they bond? Do they get on each other's nerves? How does it work there?
They totally bond. Yeah. Because like Scotty's in his lane and Reno just doesn't care about anything. And I think they would work well together. I don't think they'd be, chummy, but they would work really well together, I think.
They need to get her in every episode, as far as I'm concerned. But that's my opinion. All right, Scott, you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right, fair enough. And what do you got? And you
big money.
Oh, hold on, you got the same one, and we don't no duplications. All right, what do you got? All right, you are on Trektastic Voyage. Okay, even with all the new Trek out there, and even more new shows on the way, is there any new Star Trek show you'd like to see get made?
Something that I would like that would be probably have no real commercial value is something that's more outside of Starfleet and is just, something to do with the Federation, just, and you could go just about anywhere, it could be, maybe it's in, the ambassadors or, some other feature of the Federation. Right. I think it'd be a hard thing to do a show to sell that show, though.
Well, I mean, in a way, that was sort of like DS9, right? It was not a ship; it was a stationary place, and people kind of came in and out. So who knows? All right, Ellie, you ready to face the wheel?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. And what do we got for you? And you got okay, Grievous versus Dreadnock. All right, so it's difficult not to notice that, at least so far, Dreadnock seems like a pretty direct alternate universe and franchise version of General Grievous from Star Wars. How do you think they do if they were transplanted to each other's franchises?
Based on my very little knowledge of General Grievous, I think that a lot of people would die. I think he would be really good in the mirror universe. I would love to see that for him. I think it could be better for him than his own universe. As far as what is it? Dreadnock?
Yeah, Dreadnock.
I don't know. I think the Star Wars universe might prove to be a little much for him. I don't know if he has quite that. He seems like he really just has his bestie in the tube and he hits the buttons, and I don't know how much more he can do besides exactly that.
All right, well, that's them some fighting words. We'll have to see how that plays out. All right, so now we're going to go to our advice column, but a little bit of a different take on the advice column. So for anyone who's writing or creating anything Star Trek related, what's the best advice you can give? Jim?
Stay true, focus on the characters more than anything. I mean, I have an unfair advantage because I'm the line editor and the project manager for the Star Trek game, right? So I always tell my writers, focus on the characters. It's not about your cool plot necessarily, or all the crazy things that are going on. Just like, what can the players do and what can the characters do? So like if you're writing Star Trek, lean into the characters and make them somebody that we want to watch week after week after week, because that's the heritage of Star Trek, right? We cared about these characters so much that we invited them into our living rooms time after again.
All right, Scott.
Yeah. Well, you have to stay true to the overall feel of the universe, and if you feel too restricted by some of the elements of the series canon, then you would be better off writing your own original material. And when you're in the Star Trek universe, you got to play by certain Star Trek rules.
Ella?
I don't know if I'm quite at that point in my career yet. Maybe we're getting a little close, but I would say that we need. I would say look at the new shows. I think we could make some really, really cool new merch that isn't out yet. Or even like, I would love to see some new t-shirts. Is that good? Can I just ask for things for my advice?
You can ask for
You know what I was looking for today? A live long and prosper crop top. It is a cat. And I couldn't find it. Surprised as you may be, there were no live long and prosper crop tops.
That is outrageous. We're going to have to do something about that. All right, so we have a few minutes, so we're going to take some questions from the audience. All right, question for the panel. Do you think Lower Decks is accessible to non-Star Trek fans? It has a lot of fan service. Scott?
I think you definitely get a lot more out of it if you have the deeper your knowledge is. But I think that there's a lot of stuff in there that's pretty, just accessible, character-based humor. Anyone can appreciate a character like Boimler, who's desperate to get approval and fumbles about, and so there's a lot there to people to relate to, even if they don't have 50 years of backstory.
Ella?
Could you repeat the question for me?
So Lower Decks, do you think Lower Decks is accessible to non-Star Trek fans?
I think yes, 100%. And none of my friends watch Star Trek, and Lower Decks is the first show that I've had friends, like roommates have come home or friends have arrived while I'm finishing an episode, and they've asked me like, oh, can I come over and watch? I know that they know I do Star Trek on Thursday, so like, can I come over and watch the show with you? Which is very exciting. So I think yes, as far as whoever's in my circle, it's working for them.
All right, good enough. All right, so Riker, beard or no beard?
In my opinion, beard. Yeah.
Beard.
Beard.
Yes, for sure. Okay. All right. What else we got here? Blah blah blah. I love All right. Prodigy seems like Clone Wars. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through here. Okay. Question. I think we brought this up a little bit, but it'll come up again. So, what do you think about bringing back Chakotay?
Too early to say. I think it was a nice piece of fan service, but we don't know the bigger story behind it yet. So I think, in my opinion, it's to be determined.
Yeah, and one of the things that it makes me think about is, it would have so much more emotional depth to it if the Janeway was the real Janeway, but it is just a simulation of Janeway. So the history between Janeway and Chakotay doesn't really play into it. We don't know how much the hologram has been programmed with that kind of personal information. So we'll have to see what happens.
All right, and one question. So Ella, do you have is that Grudge behind you?
Yeah, it's absolutely Grudge. That's Indiana Jones. He's apparently had a very rough day full of being spoiled, so he's causing a little bit of a ruckus.
All right, so one question we have here: what might have happened in the future Federation had Enterprise D gone forward in the future instead of Discovery, given that the burn happened?
Wow. Well, I think the real stickler answer would be that without having the spore drive, if it was just the regular D that somehow got transported in the future, they wouldn't be able to affect much change like Discovery did. So there wouldn't be as much impact, although certainly they would have tried to inspire people to rebuild the Federation.
Actually, let's stick on that for a second, because I've heard this from a bunch of different folks at different times have chimed into me about this. The spore drive doesn't seem to be all that popular. What's your take on it?
I think they could have come up with a better technological, babble behind it than mushrooms. But really it's just, whatever. The spores, the spice, it's all just it's just a way to come up with a more instantaneous form of travel. So I recognize its purpose dramatically, and I just try to not forget about the fact that it's mushrooms.
Yeah. So the spore drive, I think it's fine. Like Scott said, it's a plot contrivance, and thinking of the game, of the role-playing game that we're doing, a lot of fans really want the whole warp drive thing to be precise, and they want the exact distances between planets to planets. And we say, just things really happen at the speed of plot, right? If you need to get to a planet, just get there. And now Discovery has pretty much just made it possible, right? If you need to go from one planet to another planet, boom, you're there. You don't even have to worry about it. Just take a hop on your spore drive, you're done. And you just move on with the story. So okay, that's fine. And I would really love them to be more challenged. I think I would love to see. If Book's out of the picture and Stamets is out of the picture, you got no spore drive. So find other ways to tell stories that don't rely on it.
So speaking of which, this is a good question that just popped up. Does it bother you that that Discovery has gone 900 years into the future, and overall it doesn't seem like they're really that far behind technologically? Not just the computer and equipment, but medically, scientifically, they seem to be fairly in line with where the technology is 900 years ahead. You'd think that they would just be that Discovery would basically be like the Flintstones in comparison, but yet they seem more or less in the same universe. Pass the sniff test? Yes, no, maybe? What do you think?
I think maybe a lot of that is happening off screen. I would love to see an episode where everyone is constantly putting their feet in their mouth because they don't know what's going on, or they have to study up before every single meeting. Maybe a little bit of a better Lower Decks episode than the Disco episode.
Well, yeah, I think that if you really tried to be realistic about it, then every episode would be them just not knowing how to work the microwave or whatever, and you just have to kind of get past that and get to the story. So it's a bit of an affectation. I recognize that it's a little bit of a problem, but for me, just like the mushroom aspect of the instantaneous travel, I just kind of shrug and move on and watch the stories and the characters.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so we got a few minutes left, and I'm going to share my screen. I got a couple of things for everyone to check out, so bear with me for just a moment. I always do this wrong. Hopefully I'll do it right this time. Okay. All right, you guys seeing what I'm seeing here?
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me. Scott, what am I looking at?
Well, there you're seeing the cover of Shattered Light in the Myriad Universes anthology series. I contributed a novella to that called Honor in the Night, which is basically the alternate timeline sequel to The Trouble with Tribbles. And so you can see Niels Barris on the cover there.
All right.
And everyone should read it. What more can I say?
All right, fair enough. Okay. What else we got here? All right, so Ella, what do we got?
The thumbnail for my Star Trek recap podcast is called Discoverage. It's super fun. We go live every Thursday. Now with Prodigy, we find the episodes to be a little bit shorter since the TV we're talking about is only 20 minutes. But it seems like we're in for a big year for Star Trek. So really we'll be going live every single Thursday, it seems like, for most of 2022. So everybody should stop by.
All right, so you hear that, folks? If you're watching Star Trek and you want to keep up on what's going on with every episode, it is your mission, if you choose to accept it, and you do, to check out Ella's podcast. All right.
Live at 8 p.m. Central every Thursday.
8 p.m. Central every Thursday. All right, fair enough. And where do they find it?
You can find it at EIST Pod on Twitter, or my Twitter handle is Gondor Gold, and I always retweet it.
All right. Okay. Jim, what do we got here?
This is the cover to the Shackleton Experience Campaign Guide. This is for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game, of which I'm responsible for, and Scott's my canon editor. This is our first full-length campaign for the setting. So it's 300 and something pages of Star Trek goodness. It's all original material, and it's set in a distant quadrant or distant section of the Beta Quadrant. So it's loads of advice and information for players and game masters, and hopefully you check it out and enjoy it and get years of gaming goodness out of it.
All right, that sounds great. All right, as for me, if sci-fi mystery is a little bit more of your game, I'll encourage you to check out Fractured Lives, the newest adventure featuring my hard-boiled intergalactic private eye, Angela Hardwick, part Doctor Who, part Blade Runner, and part Philip Marlowe. As the core mystery, Hardwick and her protege, Eric Whistler, are hired to find out if a galaxy design savant is suffering from a nervous breakdown or is the victim of the urban legend known as the Scarlet Raj, who may or may not have nefarious plans of her own. But on a more personal note, Hardwick is struggling to decide how or if she can be an effective private eye and be a good mother to her 5-year-old son, Owen. It's a grueling process for Hardwick, who may have to make some tough choices. Fractured Lives is available on Amazon and published by Crazy 8 Press. Okay, folks, that's our show. This has been a blast, and I want to thank Ella and Jim and Scott for stopping by. And I want to thank everyone who's watching. I'm your host, Russ Colchamiro. And as always, I will see you all next week. All right. Take care, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Good seeing you.
Folks. Great show. Thanks for coming by. Take care, guys.